Well, welcome, Jill.
Hello, everybody. I am, of course, Chef Jill Garcia Schmidt. For those of you who joined us for my knife skills class, I am so happy to be back. These online classes are so much fun, and they are an excellent way to get through this day with a little more fun in it. So, we are going to talk all about chicken today, y'all. And one of the questions that I get as a chef all the time is, what is your signature dish? Well, I do not have one, and there's a reason for that. And that's because I want to be good at everything. And one of the things that I have made my mission in life is to never make dry, tasteless chicken. I know that this is a problem because I go to other people's homes, I eat out, and it is just, it's an epidemic that you can't get away from dry, tasteless chicken. So today I'm going to show you guys 3 different techniques to make really juicy, really moist, and super tasty chicken. But before we actually do any cooking, I always want to go over some food safety stuff with you guys, because when we are talking about chicken, there are some contamination things that we want to deal with. Now, we're going to be using 3 different cuts, and this one is actually the whole shebang. We're going to do a whole chicken today. And believe it or not, it will be done before we are done today. We are also going to talk about chicken breasts and chicken thighs. There are other great cuts of chicken that you might really enjoy using. One of my favorites is chicken tenderloins. But I chose these 3 because I feel like these are probably the most purchased, the most used especially in our area of the United States. So when we are dealing with chicken, it can be really easy to spread its little bacterias and stuff all over your kitchen. So one of the things that I want to talk about straight off is rinsing your chicken. Now, the world is very divided on whether or not you should rinse your chicken when you've opened the package. But I'm here to tell you right now that if you rinse your chicken in your sink, it's not like it's a bad thing, okay? It's not going to hurt the chicken. What it ends up doing, though, is it spreads the chicken goo all over your kitchen. As soon as you turn the faucet on and it hits the bird, there it goes, all right? Even if you think it's not, it is. So the number one thing I would say is, if you're going to rinse your chicken, you need to immediately clean your sink and the countertop and your faucet and the whole situation to avoid cross-contamination, all right? Now, if you're like me and you buy organic or smart chicken, that kind of thing, I am able to do that because it's just my husband and I. I'm not trying to feed a large family. I understand that budget makes a big part of our daily decision in what kind of chicken we buy. So I feel very comfortable about not having to rinse this because of the way it is packaged, also the way it is kept. It's nice and clean. And then what you end up with is a really nice air dried chicken. Why is air drying important? We'll get to that in a second. But so at this point, if you have rinsed your chicken, that's totally fine. Make sure you clean up after your mess. Okay. Now we need to get the chicken to where it's going to be ready to cook. And air drying is the best way to get your chicken to perform the way you want it to in the pan or in the oven. One of the reasons why we love chicken, especially a whole chicken like this beautiful one here, is because of the skin, right? We want it to get really crispy. We want it to get golden and brown and delicious. And if we put a wet chicken into the oven, what's going to end up happening is, even if the oven temperature is super duper high, it is going to end up steaming throughout the first half of the cooking process because of all the moisture that the chicken has produced in the oven. Okay. So, step 2, after you've gotten your chicken out of its package and you're prepared and ready, cleaned up and ready to go, you want to make sure that this chicken is dry. So, we have a couple of ways that you can do that. This is my favorite. I just put it on a plate and I let it sit out at room temperature for about an hour. Now, if you're worried about, oh, okay, we're talking cross contamination, but now you're sitting the chicken out for an hour, guys, food safety will tell you that you have 4 hours at room temperature before any bad bacteria is going to start growing in the food. Okay. So that means that if I'm taking the food from my refrigerator, okay, should be around 38 to 41 degrees when I pull it from the refrigerator. Then room temperature is in my house, if I'm lucky on a day like today, 70 to 72 degrees. That's a big swing, guys. That's 30 some degrees where it has to heat before bacteria will start to build. And science will tell you it normally takes about 4 hours to do that. So sitting it out at room temperature for an hour to air dry, not going to hurt it at all. Okay. Now, if that makes you uncomfortable, I totally understand. So you have an alternative. You can sit these plates just like this, or your roasting pan, whatever you're going to use, you can put it in your refrigerator overnight uncovered. Okay. And the same thing will take place. It's just going to take a lot longer to do that because of the moisture that's actually in the refrigerator. But you would definitely want to make sure you leave it uncovered. That's the whole point, is that no moisture is captured underneath plastic wrap or foil or paper towels. Now, if you do not have the time to let it air dry, I mean, who does on a Thursday night, right? 5 o'clock, it's dinner time. So what are the alternatives to that without making a huge mess in your kitchen? The good old trusty paper towel, y'all. These are disposable, which means that you're not going to have to worry about washing them or creating even more opportunity for contamination. And what you really want to do is just get up on there and just pat them dry until all of the moisture has come off. If you want to sit them on some paper towels for a little bit, like 15 minutes, you can do that. But then make sure you take that paper towel out and throw it away before you start prepping your chicken, because you do not want any bits of paper towel stuck to the meat when you go to cook. All right. So before I move on, do we have any questions about cross contamination or keeping your kitchen clean, or the reasons why we're doing any of this? I want to make sure that we're very clear on these things.
You said the temperature of the refrigerator. Can you please say it again? And also temperature of freezer, what those temperatures should be?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. So in your refrigerator, it should be between 38 and 41 degrees. All right. That is ideal. In the restaurant business, when we get the health department to come out, that is what they're looking for. So, common sense tells you that you want the same thing at home. Your refrigerator is adjustable. All refrigerators come with a dial in there. And if you don't have a temperature gauge in there, I highly recommend that you go ahead and pick one up. They're very cheap. You can get one almost at any grocery store these days. But pretty much any thermometer will work in there. And you just want to make sure that it's sitting in between that 38 and 41 degrees. Now, is it a deal breaker, and is it going to change your life if it's at 42? No. Okay. We tend to over dramatize and get really upset about food in this country because of the way that our government regulates everything for our own safety. We do have a little bit of leeway. Okay. So if it's 42, 43, 44, 45, 45, yeah, you might want to go ahead and turn it down. But anything below 38, and you're getting to that point where you're going to start to see crystallization and even freezing around the edges, or thinner things. So like if you have lettuce or anything in there and you're below 38 degrees, your lettuce is going to start to get really crispy and frozen, and it's going to start to contain a lot of water, which will make it soggy when you go to use it.
Yeah.
So don't let it go below 38. 41 is ideal. 42, fine. Anything over 43 and you want to get that turned down. And then your freezer, has to be below 32 degrees, right? 32 degrees is freezing. So you want to make sure that it is below that. And freezers, guys, are one of the most abused appliances that we have in our houses, because we overload it to the point where it works extra hard to get to that freezing temperature. So make sure that every time you put something in, pull something out and throw it away if you're not going to use it. That's a really good rule thumb so that if it's in the back of the freezer, go ahead and grab that out. Man, I don't even know what this is or how long it's been in there. Let's get rid of that and put the new stuff in. All right. So great tips. Honestly, those will help. Oh, and before I forget, if you're going to put stuff in the freezer, date it and label it. That is a really great way to save yourself some money, because you can know, hey, that chicken has got 3 months on that. I'm going to go ahead and pull it out this week and use it, because once it gets to 6 months, that freezer burn is going to start to set in.
There's
Okay.
another question. What is smart
Awesome.
chicken? What is smart chicken? I didn't know either.
Okay, so Smart Chicken is a brand. You can get it in most grocery stores. And there's no antibiotics, there's no GMOs, there's no, and it actually has an organic portion too. But I usually just, if I'm going to buy Smart Chicken, because again, it's just my husband and I, these two breasts right here were $5.85. But look at how clean they are. They're all trimmed. I didn't do any knife work on these at all. And that is one of the reasons why I like Smart Chicken. It saves me time. And I know that it is not packed in any weird chemicals. Thank you for bringing that up, because one more thing I want to talk about in food safety. When you buy prepackaged meat at the grocery store, guys, I realize that as a chef, I'm very picky. I also realize that my entertainment budget is my grocery budget, because that's what makes me happy.
Exactly.
And again, I don't have kids, so that does make a huge difference in my food budget. But one of the things that I lost my train of thought, and I have to go back and think about this for just a second. We were talking about
packaging, maybe packaging.
Thank you. So when you go to the grocery store and you buy meat that's already in a package that is sealed up, okay? If you look at it, if the top of that package is domed, all right, not flat, but domed, and when you press it, it's like tight, like a drum. What's happening inside there is it's been pumped full of chemicals to help give it a longer shelf life, even when it's cold. They do that to elongate the life of the product. Now, again, it's not going to kill you tomorrow. I don't know about 20 years, but I do not want that in my food. Okay. I do not need those chemicals in my food. So when I go out to buy my meat, I avoid those kinds of packaging, whether it's beef, pork, chicken, I don't care. If it's got a dome on it, it stays there. Okay.
So you mean dome? It's like there's like an airspace between.
Yes.
That's what you are talking about.
So like it's in like a either a plastic container or a styrofoam container, and then it's got plastic over the top, right? But when you look at it, it goes like this.
Yeah.
Over the top. It's not flat. All of that is chemical gases that have caused all of that pressure to infuse. And when that happens, all of those things go into your food.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we just don't need them. Now, again, I understand that budget sometimes says, hey, that's what I can afford. That's what I'm going to buy. No problem. Those are the types when I go home and I rinse that chicken off. Okay. Because I don't need any of those extra chemicals that they use in packaging to elongate the life. Is it going to hurt you? Not necessarily, but it's just something that I myself pay attention to.
Yeah, I don't buy anything with chemicals either. I would rather eat less meat than that.
And right, and not everybody has that luxury, but that's true. Yes,
that's my food budget is also my entertainment budget, because we rarely eat out. And there was another question about so putting chicken in the freezer, is it okay to put it in the packaging it came in? Or like, let's say if you were not cooking these 2 chicken breasts right now, how would you put them in the freezer?
Okay, that is an excellent question, you guys. And this is something that people can make a mistake on this all the time. Now, if you buy the chicken from the freezer, okay, at the grocery store, it's in the freezer. It should be in packaging that is freezer safe. All right. You should be able to go ahead and just put it straight into your freezer at home. If you buy the chicken thawed, okay, in your meat department and you just pull it out, no freezer, you will need to repackage it because it
Oh,
is
I didn't
not
know that.
packaged in freezer safe packaging, which means that you will get freezer burn. So the first thing I do when I get those home is, depending on how much time I have, I'll either wrap it in freezer safe plastic wrap, or I will open the package and I will individually wrap them, because sometimes I'll buy, if it's on sale, a 6-pack of breasts. Well, my husband and I, it'll take us a month to get through six breasts here because it's just the two of us. So I will individually wrap them in plastic and then put them in a freezer bag, so that all I have to do is pull 1 or 2 out for dinner that night. But that is a really good question. It's, you store things exactly the way you bought them. And if you want to put them in the freezer but you buy them fresh, then you need to package them for the freezer.
No, I didn't
Great
know that. Yeah.
question. Yeah. I mean, you don't have to, but again, it's going to create a better product at the end when you go to thaw it out. It's not going to be covered in ice crystals, which totally and completely changes the texture of the meat. So
Yeah.
yeah, you'll enjoy it
Thank
much
you.
more.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's go ahead and get started, because I want to make sure that this whole chicken is done when we are ready. Now, I am not actually going to cook this whole chicken in this pan, and that is because I want to create a rotisserie type of situation in my oven. Now, you do not have to have any kind of special equipment for this. You do not have to have a special oven. You just need to have a sheet tray with sides. Now, a little pro tip, cookie sheets are flat. Okay, they have no sides. They might have one end that has a little lip on it to help you get it in and out of the oven, but a cookie sheet is flat. A sheet tray has sides on it, a 1-inch lip at least. Okay, and that is because these guys can be used in a variety of ways, from cookies to chicken. All right, and we want a vessel that can hold all the juice, but I don't want the chicken sitting in the juice. And why is that? Because I want the heat to be able to circulate all the way around the chicken so that it gets crispy, crispy, crispy. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So we are going to season this chicken in this pan, though, because I want to make sure that I have a place for all of the seasoning and stuff to go before I transfer it. Now, at this point, if I were working in my restaurant, and I don't know why I do not have any gloves right now, but I would be wearing gloves for this. But since I'm at home, I'm just going to do it this by hand, and then I'll wash my hands immediately before moving on. Even though I'm working chicken, I want to make sure and wash my hands between each, because they were packaged at different times. They came separately and all that. So without cross-contaminating anything, all right? Now, the most important thing about using a whole chicken is making sure that you season every part of him, because all of it is going to flavor the final product. Now, I'm going to keep it fairly simple today with salt and pepper, but I have a really great pro tip for y'all. And that is baking soda. Okay. Baking soda will help make this skin super crispy. So, what I want to do is just grab a little bowl here, turn this guy. I've got some salt, and this is sea salt, but again, you can use whatever salt you like. Let me rephrase that by saying, don't use a finishing salt for this part. And by finishing salt, I mean a Himalayan pink salt. I mean a really coarse sea salt. Anything that you wouldn't use on your plate. Let me just throw a little extra salt. So those salts are for finishing, and they're great, but they don't have a lot of flavor to them. And they also are not going to help you build a crust on the outside of this, which is what we're trying to do here. So we're going to use this sea salt. It's kind of a medium grind. It's not real fine, but it's not as chunky as a kosher salt. Now I'm using a coarse grind pepper. I prefer fresh ground pepper, but I have really bad arthritis, and I am not able to do this thing anymore. And so I need to buy an electric pepper grinder. But in the meantime, I'm just using coarse grind. Okay. And why coarse grind? Because that powdery stuff is just that, it's powdery and it doesn't really adhere to the food. You end up, as you're pouring it out, it ends up more in the air than it does on your food. Now, the last thing we're going to add to this is some baking soda. And just because I know it's going to make you guys feel better, I'll even measure it out for you. We're going to add 1.5 teaspoons. So 1.5 teaspoon baking soda. This does not add any flavor. This does not tenderize. This is not in there as some magic ingredient that is going to hold the juice or the moisture in. This is simply to create crispy skin. All right. And it's just going to help to draw the moisture out of the skin so that it gets nice and crispy. So now, if you wanted to, you could add herbs to this. You could add garlic. You could add anything you want to, but I'm going to keep it very, very simple because that way, once this chicken is done, I can use it in a million different ways. I can use it in a chicken salad. I could make pasta with it. I could make soup out of it. Heck, I can use it 3 or 4 times just this week. And if I've seasoned it to a specific flavor or taste today, then I'm kind of stuck in that range as I'm using it later on. You know, if I do lemon and thyme and oregano, I may not want to use it in my stir fry later this week. So just think about that, keeping it kind of evergreen or vanilla in order to use it on and on throughout the week. And I'm going to use a really nice, clean canola oil. I do not make any money from brands, guys, but I will tell you that Wesson is my favorite. If you hold up Wesson oil next to any other brand, this is lighter in color, it has less processing, and it really does have no flavor, which is what I'm looking for here. So I'm just going to do a little bit of oil. Remember, chicken has the skin on and is still fatty, so it doesn't need a ton of extra oil. But we do need something to get the seasoning to adhere, right? Yeah. Okay, so now we're going to do wet hand, dry hand so that we don't do any cross-contaminating. And at this point, I'm going to start giving my chicken that Friday night back rub that he's been begging for since he's been out of the package. We're going to flip him over. Oh, he's all swirly now. Hang on. Wet hand, dry hand. There we go. Get him all lathered up in the oil. And now with my dry hand, we're going to begin to season. So now you can see why I wanted that dish underneath there to catch all that extra, because I don't necessarily want it on the bottom of my sheet tray, and because I'm going to use all the drippings from the sheet tray to make sauce or gravy, right? Duh. Now, don't forget to do the bottom, all right, because all of this needs to taste good. And then don't forget to do the cavity. The cavity counts too, guys. Are we going to eat the cavity? No, but the cavity produces all of that great juice that is going to help us in the long run with our gravy and our sauce. All right, so now I've got wet hand, dry hand, and I'm going to take my wet hand and I'm just going to transfer him. Now, to start this, okay, we are going to go breast side down to start. And we're going to take our little wings here and we are going to fold them back on top of each other so that they don't go during the cooking process. And if you have kitchen string and you want to tie those legs together, you can absolutely do that. But I'm going to leave them out because it's going to make it easier for me to turn the chicken about midway through. All right, because again, remember we're creating a rotisserie style. So breast side down to start. That's going to allow all of the fat from here to go down into the breast, and then at the midway point, we'll turn it over so that breast can get super golden and delicious. All right, now I'm gonna move this. And of course, guys, washing my hands. All right, and I kept one hand reasonably dry, but we always want to make sure that we wash our hands, get the wrist, pretend you're a doctor for 5 seconds, and really, really get that cleaned up. And then that dish, we also want to make sure and get that rinsed out pretty much immediately and get some soap in there. That way, there's no chance of you accidentally sitting, pear tongs or something like that in there that you're still planning on using, and now you've contaminated those. So we are clean, ready to go. And for those of you who are scowling at me right now for using paper towels, just know that this is a routine process when using chicken. All right, we really do not want to create an environment that is going to promote salmonella or anything else. So cleaning up after ourselves each time, yep, super important. Now we're going to take this chicken, and I want to make sure you guys get a good peek at this. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. This is as basic as it gets. My normal routine would be to stuff the cavity full of lemon and garlic and shallots and herbs and all kinds of stuff, because all of that will make everything very fragrant. But we are teaching basics today, so this is the style that we're going with. Now, I've got my oven preheated. It is piping hot at 425 degrees. I've got the rack in the center of the oven, which gives plenty of space for my chicken. I'm going to put him in there, and I'm going to put a timer at 30 minutes. And at the end of that 30 minutes, we're going to just rotate the chicken and let it continue cooking. And then we're going to do the most important thing there is, and we're going to take its temperature, because food safety 101, guys, who can tell me, bonus points to anybody out there, who can tell me, not you, Magda, because I know you know, what is the safe temperature for eating chicken?
I'm not even sure. Does anybody want to chime in? I have this thermometer like you had, and on the out 165. Yeah.
Yes.
I have a cheat sheet because it says on that, it says on it.
Yes, there's nothing wrong with a cheat sheet. That's great, as a matter of fact. And kudos to, I didn't catch your name, but I did see that you typed in 165 degrees, and that is correct. So that is the minimum, guys, the minimum. Now, I say that, and some of you are like, but if I overcook the chicken, then it's dry. You are absolutely right. So is there a sweet spot? Yes, there is. And now I'm going to teach it to you. So we are going to go with the breast first, because I'm going to teach you guys how to do what's called a shallow poach. All right. And what do I use chicken that I have made a shallow poach in? Oh my goodness. Well, so many things, but just off the top of my head, 3 things. Chicken pot pie. I love poached chicken in my chicken pot pie because it is tender, it is juicy, it is moist, it is clean, it has no color to it. There's no crunchy ends. Chicken salad, like as in a chicken salad sandwich mixed with mayonnaise and all that good stuff. Love poached chicken for that. So poached chicken is underutilized, but it can be done very easily, very quickly. So we are going to start with my cast iron skillet, because that is what works on my electric burner here. And we're going to turn that on, and we're going to add a little bit of liquid. Now, this is where we have to decide what is this chicken to taste like. Because whatever we put in here is going to infuse into this blank canvas of chicken breasts here, all right? These guys by themselves are like so boring. There's nothing to them. There's no fat, which means there's no flavor. There's no skin, which means there's no texture. So we really have to achieve as much flavor at this point as we can. Okay, so it's not about seasoning this with salt and pepper and all the stuff on the top. It's about adding aromatics and delicious things to our poaching liquid. So we're doing a shallow poach, which means that we are not going to fill this up and boil this, right? We don't want this to be sitting in a vat of water. What we do want is to go ahead and get, a little bit of water in the bottom of the pan here. And what that's going to do now is prevent it from sticking, and it's going to prevent it from picking up any color. So we're going to just lay that in there. We're going to lay the other ones in, and then we're going to cover this with water just until the chicken is covered. All right, which means that if we were taking a bath, we lay down in the bath and it just covers our forehead when we lay down, right? We're not sitting in a swimming pool. So that's what we're looking for, because we are giving this guy just a really nice shallow bath that is going to promote just enough heat to slowly and gently cook it. So the next thing, pro tip that I'm going to give you is don't use a lid. What? I know everybody says, but Jill, you're supposed to use a lid. Well, technically, lids are going to do what is called capture, right? They will capture the steam that is released from the pan, and then it's going to build condensation up at the top of the lid, and then it's going to what? Fall back into the pan. So we don't necessarily want any evaporation, okay? So we don't want to lose liquid, but we also don't want to add liquid back in. So in comes our parchment paper. What we're going to do is I'm going to fold that in half. I'm going to fold it in half again. I'm going to, fold it in half again. And again, so that now I have kind of an isosceles triangle looking situation, right? This is the center. So what I want to do now is find the center of my pan. We're going to cut this off right about there. And it's going to give me a beautiful round paper lid. Okay. And this way, there it is. I got a little bubbling action underneath here. So I want to just make sure that I can pull the chicken off. Yeah, there we go. He is nicely covered. Now I turned that square into a circle. How impressed are you with that? I mean, come on, that's pretty cool. Except it's way too big. So we're just going to trim it up a little bit. No big deal. I'd rather it start out a little too big than a little too small, because you can't bring it back. All right. So my chicken is slightly uncovered here. So I just want to add a little bit more water. There we go. Okay, so now I've got my lid, quote unquote, right? Now we're going to season this. So I just saw somebody say, hey, instead of using water, and I can almost guess where the question is going, can you use chicken broth? Can you use wine? Can you use apple juice? You can use anything, guys. If it's wet, you can use it. Absolutely. Now, I'm going to add a little bit of Knorr chicken broth powder to this, okay? This is my favorite one. Again, I do not get anything from brands, but I will always tell you, and every good Mexican cook has this in their cabinet. So we're going to add a little bit of chicken bouillon. We are going to add some black pepper. If I had whole black peppercorns, which I probably do, but I'm not going to waste your time by looking at for them. I would add my whole black peppercorns to that. Okay. We're going to add salt. Remember that the seasoning, the Knorr bouillon, pretty salty. So I'm not going to go crazy on the salt here. And then whatever else you wanted. So you want garlic, put garlic in there. You want ginger, put ginger in there. Chilies, you name it, you can put it in here. You can put star anise. You can put cinnamon sticks. I'm telling you right now, you guys, sky's the limit. So I have a wonderful, where's it at? Green Goddess. There we go. This beautiful Trader Joe's Green Goddess seasoning. I love it. I'm honestly, I've never even used it to make a Green Goddess dressing. I use it on everything else because it's got all the alliums in it. So it's got like onion and shallot and green onion. And so we're going to add a little bit of that in there. Now, what I want to make sure, can you see the bubbling in here? Okay. We're going to actually turn it down. One. So now I have it at a 6, which is probably about medium low. All right. A little more to the medium than it is the low. But what we do not want to do is boil this bad boy. So now we're going to take our lid and we're going to press it straight down onto the water or your poaching liquid. And that's it. Now we just wait until that cooks all the way through. Takes about 15 to 20 minutes, sometimes longer, depending on how big the chicken pieces are. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to transfer this to my stovetop back here so that I can show you the next recipe. Okay.
If I may chime in, this is amazing.
Please.
I love it because I make chicken salad using rice, pre-cooked rice.
Yes.
And so this is, and I also poach it, but this is much better method.
And what you don't want to do is you don't want to boil it. Boiling meat will actually make it tougher.
Yeah.
And poaching, a great way to kind of describe how it works is if you have a slow cooker, right? If you have a crock pot and you put it on low for 4 hours, but if you don't fill that crock pot up and you only cover the chicken as much as with enough liquid as you need, same process. All right. But what we end up doing with the crock pot is we do it on low for 8 hours. And what happens is science takes place. And the chicken is like a sponge, you guys. All meat is like a sponge. When you buy a brand new sponge and you take it out of the package and you submerge it in your water and you pull it out, does all the water stay in it? No, it comes pouring out, right? Because the sponge can only absorb so much
but
before
a little bit it stays in it.
Yes, so a little stays in it, but the majority of it will come pouring out. Yeah. So meat is exactly the same way. At 140 degrees, it cannot absorb any more moisture. So when the internal temperature gets to 140 degrees of any meat, it stops absorbing moisture and it starts protecting itself and says, I don't want any more. And it starts pushing the moisture out. This is why at the end of 8 hours, your crock pot chicken, you come home and you're like, oh my God, it smells so good. I cannot wait to eat this. And it's disappointing because it's dry and mealy. That is because the chicken, much like us, can only sit in bath water for so long before we get pruny and lose all of our moisture, right? So just consider that if you're going to use a slow cooker, just do it on low for 4 hours and with less liquid, and you will be shallow poaching. All right. Now I'm just going to pop this guy over here. I've got him on medium, but I want to make sure that's not too high. So I'm going to pay attention for the next minute or two to make sure that we're not missing it. All right, now, this next dish is fabulous. And I love chicken thighs, you guys. They have tremendous flavor. You can buy them with the skin on, which means that you get the crispy, crunchy skin that you desire with chicken. And it also, you can buy it boneless, skinless, which makes it super easy to work with. But here's the thing about chicken thighs, you guys. Yes, 165 degrees is safe, and that is what we're shooting for. But a chicken thigh is even better at 180 degrees or more. And that's because the chicken thigh, the meat in it is denser. And so it takes longer for it to shred and pull. You'll notice that if you cook chicken thigh to 165 degrees, yes, it's tender, it's juicy, it's delicious, but it almost more flakes off in larger pieces, right? You can't really shred it. So 180 degrees and further is what I like to cook my chicken thighs to make sure that they are very, very, very juicy and as tender as possible. So today I am using bone in, skin on, because bone in means flavor. All right. The bone has marrow in there, and the marrow has a little bit of gelatin in it. It's all natural, nothing that we put in there. And what that means is that as that cooks out and it seeps into the pan, it's going to help create a better sauce. It's going to be more flavorful, and it's going to have a better texture. It's going to have that glistening texture to it, as opposed to just something that you have having to add a whole bunch of flour or butter, things like that to it. Not that that's ever a bad thing, but I think you know what I mean. So bone in because of that, skin on because I am a chicken skin fan. Now, if you are not a chicken skin fan, or it's not fitting in your diet right now, you can take the skin off and still cook these with the bone in. All right. You'll still get the benefit of the bone, but you can remove the skin. If you're going to do boneless, skinless chicken breast, or excuse me, boneless, skinless chicken thighs, they're going to take a little bit less time to cook. They're still going to be delicious. So don't let that deter you just because I'm using bone in, skin on today. I just prefer them for what we're doing here. Okay. Now I've got my shallow cast iron. This is called a brazier. All right. It's got two handles on it. So it's called a brazier. And what I love about this guy is that he can go straight into the oven. And with chicken thighs, a lot of times I will finish them in the oven, because to get them to that 180 degrees or more, it's going to take about 25 to 30 minutes. Okay. An average chicken thigh will take 22 minutes to get to 165 degrees. And if it's boneless, skinless, it'll take about 17. Now, obviously, being different sizes, that's not a pure science, but you get what I'm going for here. So once again, air dry, because you want the skin to be nice and crispy. And yes, once again, I am going to add just a little bit of baking soda to the skin. And this time, instead of adding the fat directly to the chicken, we're going to add the fat to the pan. So I'm not going to need to put any oil on these. I'm just going to go straight on with the baking soda and get that on first. And just a little pinch, guys. I'm not even going to measure it out. I just want to make sure that I can see it on the skin. Okay. And then, as with everything else we've done today, we're going to keep it nice and simple. We're going to go salt and pepper. And that allows us to really get creative and frisky with the chicken once it's all done cooking. We could use it in anything because we have not isolated it with a specific flavor profile. Now, I can hear my pan that I'm turning way down. All right. We don't just cook with our eyes. We also cook with our noses and our ears. As soon as I could hear the bubbles going back there, I'm like, whoop, that tells me I got to get back there. My nose says all of the aromatics that I put in there smell great, which means that they're going to permeate into that chicken. And then my eyes tell me, hey, girl, it's boiling. Get over here and turn it down. Okay. Now, once again, you'll notice that I do a lot of pouring into my hand and then seasoning. That is because I prefer to be in complete control of where the seasoning ends up and how much is on there. And when I use my fingers, I can it's tactile, right? I can feel how much I'm using. If I'm just shaking, it's just a free for all. I'm like that guy on the corner is just like, oh, all right. So we're going to again use canola oil. I'm actually going to turn this up now to medium high. I don't want to go straight high on this because I don't want to shock the chicken when I put it in there, but I also definitely want to make sure that this gets a great sear on it. Now, I'm looking at my timer back here and I'm at 11 minutes on the chicken. So the number one thing you don't want to do is open that door. Okay. If you have an oven door that has no window in it, just set yourself a timer and understand that don't open it until that timer goes off. It's not going to be overcooked at 30 minutes, guys. So you can feel confident in knowing that you can leave that door shut. I can feel confident in looking through my glass window there saying, okay, nothing's on fire. We're good. So how do we keep the chicken from sticking to the pan? We let the pan get hot and then we add the oil. If you add oil to a pan, a cold pan, and let them heat together, what's going to end up happening is the oil is going to stick to the pan. And if the oil sticks to the pan, guys, what is everything else going to do in there? Stick. So we've got to let technology do its thing. This pan is designed to get hot. If I don't let it get hot before I put the oil in, it's not going to be able to do its job. So how do I know when it's hot? Well, I'm not going to fling water at it. You can do that at home if you want, but if that bounces back and gets you, that was not on me. So how do we know? We do a 4-inch test. We hold our palm of our hand over the center of the pan, 4 inches or so. And if we can feel the radiant heat in our palm, then we know the pan is hot. All right. If you hold your hand here, you're feeling the heat from the side, which is where the heat comes from. So you want to make sure that you hold it over the center of the pan. Now we're going to add our oil and we're going to pour it from around the outside so that as the oil heats, it goes to the center of the pan and it coats the entire pan. When you put the oil in a hot pan in the middle, it goes and it clears a space and then you're left with no oil except for the ring. So when you do it around the outside, it has no choice but to go in. Genius, right? I know. I'm just full of these tips and tricks today. So once this is nice and hot, I can smell that the oil is hot. We're going to go skin side down and I'm going to go in there and I'm going to immediately make him a little bed in the oil. And now we walk away. We walk away. Okay. Why do we walk away?
Don't fiddle with it.
Yes, exactly. Don't fiddle with it. This is also why we do not put a ton of garlic and things like that on the outside of the chicken, because it will burn at this point. We are not trying to burn anything. We are trying to get that beautiful GBD, golden brown and delicious sear on the outside of the chicken skin. So all I want to do is just make sure it's in good contact, okay? Getting good heat underneath there. And then I'm going to wait until 2 things happen. Number 1, sound is going to change. Right now, can you hear it through my microphone? It's very crackly, it's sizzly, it's very loud, okay? As that continues to cook, as that chicken skin starts to crisp, you're going to start hearing different sounds going on in there. And that's going to be the first thing. The second thing is that the smell is going to change. It's going to go from smelling like oil to smelling like chicken, okay? And then You're also gonna use our eyeballs here to make sure that we are seeing it correctly. After a good 3 minutes, excuse me, I get so excited and passionate about this chicken. I get all choked up. It's hard talking consistently through this, you know? So without disturbing it too much, I just want to give it a little peek. And I've got 0 color so far. It's very, very blonde. So we're just going to leave it. All right. And we're just going to let that do its thing as it needs to. In the meantime, I guarantee you that our chicken breasts are done. So let's go ahead and take a look at those. Get that turned off. Okay, so pro tip number whatever we're at, this one counts for so much. I don't care how I'm cooking the chicken. The only time I do not do this is if I have deep fried the chicken. And that's because I want deep fried chicken to stay crunchy and crispy. So here's the pro tip. We are going to take aluminum foil, heavy duty aluminum foil. I'm going to make a crisscross applesauce little pouch for this. And what we're going to do, let me clear a little space off here, guys. Sorry. I want to make sure. Oh my God. Okay. The sound totally changed. There is more moisture in the pan now because the fat from the chicken has started to render. And yep, I've got some really great color starting. Not quite ready to turn. And if the chicken sticks, then guess what? Leave it where it's at. All right. Do not pull at it or it will tear. And that is not what we're going for here. All I did was rotate each piece 180 degrees, okay, to avoid any hot spots or cold spots. So let me grab my trivet here, and we're going to pull that chicken right over so you guys can take a peek. Now, the first thing I can tell you right now is that they are so much smaller than they were when you started. So always take into account the size difference of once you have cooked it. Always buy a little extra if you're serving it for more than just yourself. Always shrinks up a little bit. All right, I'm just washing these tongs really quickly so I just want to make sure they are 100% clean and ready to go, because I'm going to pull this poached chicken and we're going to temp it. Ideally, it should be 165 to 175. Now, when we do this, we don't want to go straight in this way because that is the narrowest part. Instead, we're going to go in through the end and we're going to go straight in like that. And there's 200. So he's a hot baby. Now, we're going to take this guy and we're going to wrap him up nice and tight. And this is where your reverse osmosis starts to take place. This is the part about food science that I just geek out on so hard. If they would have approached us, excuse me, with this kind of stuff in school, as opposed to here, dissect a frog, I would have been all over it. You know what I'm saying? But no, they want you to dissect a frog to learn how to cook chicken. I've never understood that. But reverse osmosis. Let's flip this really quick, guys. Oh, yes. Look at the color on that skin. Ooh, baby. That's what I'm talking about. GBD. And because of the way that we didn't fiddle around with it, because of the way we babysat it, there's literally no black spots, no burnt spots on the bottom of the pan, which is great because it's soft. So at this point, we're not worried about this side getting crispy, are we? No. Ooh. We're going to turn him down. It's about medium low. Again, a little more on this side of medium than low. And let him start to cook. All right. And we're not worried about crispy now. We're worried about getting to that proper temperature. So what we're also going to do now is we're going to add a little bit of liquid to this. And we're going to keep in the simplicity that we started. And we're going to do a little bit of chicken bouillon powder. You can use better than bouillon. You can use the cubes, whatever you like. Heck, you can use the stock in a box, which is amazing. You could do wine. You could do apple juice, anything wet. Again, okay? So remember, what's in here? Oil and the fat from the chicken. So when I pour this in, do not stand over it or you will end up with freckles you didn't want from before. So we're just going to stand to the side. Now, this is called braising, okay? And when we braise, we do not want to cover the meat with liquid. This is only going up about a 1/4 inch in the bottom of the pan, just enough to promote all that steam, okay? So what if we were to put a lid on here right now, what would happen to our crispy skin?
It will get soggy.
It will get soggy. So we are not going to put a lid on that, okay? Keep the lid off. We're going to let it just simmer gently. And again, no boiling because boiling is bad. We do not, this is not vegetable. We don't want to boil this. So now we're just about ready to flip our chicken. What timing. So let's do this. We're going to grab a couple of our trivets here. How are we doing on time, Magda?
Well, we are whatever you need to do. Whatever,
Okay.
it's up to you. You are the boss here.
Oh. Don't let anybody else hear you say that. Okay, first and foremost, you guys, I've got to bring this closer so you can see what is happening with the skin. Is that light too bright or can you see it?
I can see it, yes.
Can you see how it's bubbling and oh my God, that is all down to the baking soda. Now, we're gonna get in here, turn that sucker around. Into the cavity, pick it straight up, turn it straight over. Now we're gonna work on getting this side beautiful. Don't worry about the pattern that has been created by the rack. I don't care about any of that. So now we're gonna get this back in here. And we're gonna set that timer for 15 minutes. And that should be done. Now, let's take a look at our poached chicken because he's gonna be just absolutely delicious. And remember, when we put him in the package, there was nothing in the foil, right? Foil was dry. Oh, but because of science, where there is heat, there will be steam. Where there is steam, there will be condensation. Where there is condensation, there will be moisture. So when I take this chicken, check this out. All of that beautiful chicken broth. And it's very aromatic because of all the stuff that we cooked it in. Now, if you're like me, you can either shred this or chop it. However, I actually have a really great tip on how to shred this super fast. And that is you can use your standing mixer. all right, with your paddle attachment. Put that in the bowl of your standing mixer. Turn it on to just the first setting, low, give it about 10 turns, and it will shred your chicken perfectly every time. You can do that with any meat that does not have a bone in it, okay? That's the way I do my pulled pork. So, because this takes too long, and 2 forks is just ridiculous. I can't even think about doing 2 forks. You spend more time cleaning the forks than you do shredding. So let's go ahead and cut into this though and see what we are looking like, because it's so tender. Now, the other thing I want to make sure you guys know is that chicken does have grain to it. Okay, this one is going this way, and just like steak, if you cut it with the grain, you're going to get a chewier piece. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut it this way against the grain first. Okay, and then I'm just going to do a little bit of a chop here. So a quick dice. And then at this point, if you want to, put it back in your bowl with all those juices. But I'm telling you guys, look at that. Look at that. He is juicy, juicy, juicy. Right? And that's because we did not boil him. We did not overcook him in a deep water bath. We only allowed enough liquid in there to cover the chicken. Juicy, juicy, juicy. Okay. Quick rinse off. Now, I'm pretty excited about this, you guys, because I love chicken salad, like ridiculously. And so I actually have honey roasted cashews right now. I have some red grapes. I have some apple. All of that will go in there with a little bit of Duke's mayonnaise, some lemon juice, and a little bit of honey. That's a trick that Hen House taught me years ago. I've never worked for them, but if you've ever had Hen House's chicken salad, you know it's delicious, and it's because they use local honey in it. All right, any questions on these chicken breasts? They are fabulous.
Great. Yeah, great tricks.
Now, if I didn't care about my chicken's skin on this, I would wrap him up exactly the same way, okay? Especially if I'm doing boneless, skinless thighs. As soon as they're done, boom, wrapped up, tight, get all the brothy broth. But because I want this skin to stay crispy, we're going to do a little bit differently. So I'm going to take this fatty here. And once again, we want to make, I can't do that left-handed. There we go. I want to make sure temperature is right. So we're going in through the side, avoid the bone. Okay, he's still at 125, so he needs a little bit more time. Let me check this one. Yeah, they're all right at about 125. So those will need a little bit more time, but I'm not going to waste your time by making you wait on that. But I do want to tell you how I'm going to finish this. So instead of covering them entirely, what I'm going to do, same method on the double layer. I would take these guys and pop them in here just like this. Like that. Okay. So you're still steaming the bottom half, and you're still going to promote that reverse osmosis, but you're going to allow that chicken skin to stay crispy. Okay. Now I'm going to pop those back in there. And then what I would do, once those chicken, once I had all those in there, they rest for about 5-7 minutes, whatever. I would make my sauce in here. Okay. And remember, we use the bones because they add gelatin, which is where you get that shiny, shimmery look on the top of the broth here. And so that is just going to promote more deliciousness. And what all I would do is you can add mustard to that and whisk it together. It'll emulsify it. You could add a little bit of heavy cream if you wanted to make it creamy. You could add a little bit of tomato paste, apple juice, pretty much anything that you like. Wine at this point would be great. Just make sure that if you're serving it to anybody that's underage or doesn't drink, that you cook all the wine out. And how do we know when the wine has been cooked out? There's a very simple test. If you drink wine, right? Yeah, smell the wine. You're like, okay, I can smell the bouquet. I can smell the apple. I can smell the oak. I can smell the blah, 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 right? But then you drink the wine and then you look at your buddy and you go, how's it going? And when you breathe on them, the alcohol smell is very sour and you can identify that. When you're cooking with wine or cooking with alcohol, you add the alcohol in, the first thing it does is you get that sour alcohol smell. And as you're sniffing it, if you go like this, which you can't help, that means the alcohol is still in there. Once you can do this and you no longer smell what I call drunk uncle breath, then the alcohol is cooked out and you're ready to go. And that is very important to make sure that you can impart the flavor of whatever alcohol you're using, but you don't get the burn of the alcohol when you eat it. Okay. Now, I want to take a look-see at this whole chicken real quick because I want to take the temperature of it. I know that the skin isn't going to be quite where I wanted it yet, but it's already doing beautiful things. It's already starting to puff up. And I basically just want to take the temperature. And again, the thigh is going to be, should be done at this point. Oh, not quite. And the breast. Yeah, we still have some time. But as I was saying, you can already start to see the color and the bubbling of the skin. So let me get that back in there so he can keep working his magic. And actually, I'm going to lift this rack up one notch so he can be a little closer to the heat source and start getting even crispier. All right, so these are going to need another minute or so, but I feel like we can wrap things up. I think that everybody gets the idea here, I hope, but want to make sure you guys have any questions. And I mean, even if it's not necessarily about chicken, while I'm here, let's answer them.
Well, I need to add a comment. You should be on a TV show. You are so good and so entertaining and everything. That's what Anne said, when you did the knives. And too bad. I remember years ago you entered a contest into food kitchen. Yeah, and too bad you didn't get it. We should keep signing up because you are amazing.
Oh, thank you so much, Magda. That is so sweet. Yes, back in 2010, I tried out for Master Chef when they had open auditions here in Overland Park. And no, they didn't choose me, but that's okay because one of these days, somebody is going to see it and they're going to go, what have we been waiting for?
So
I wanted to be Julia Child.
Do you know who they chose at 2010?
Oh God, I do not. I have no recollection at this point. I just remember I stood in line for 4 hours in the snow and the ice, and with my little dish, but I had a hot box because I was catering for Jose Peppers at the time.
Yeah.
And so I had a hot box with one plate in it, keeping it hot. And I got interviewed in the paper for the Kansas City Star for that. And then years later, I became the executive chef and lead instructor at the Culinary Center of Kansas City, which is where the tryouts were. And I was in my interview there. I stopped to use the bathroom before I went home, and then my interview from the paper was in a frame in the bathroom. And I was like, well, if that's not a sign I'm supposed to work here, I don't know what is.
So is it the one in downtown Overland Park?
Yeah, I worked there for 5 years. No, I left there in 2022. Now I just do my own thing.
Yeah. So. Well, this is great. You are always great, so entertaining.
Oh, thank
So,
you.
and so we have a beef and pork coming up on the 27th, so please sign
Yes.
up.
Yes,
All right.
please sign up. And you guys, you can find recipes like these on my website, jillskitchenkc.com. I have several chicken recipes on there so that you could absolutely put these to work for you. But I hope I've given you enough information to at least get started tonight. And don't forget, guys, always practice food safety, especially when you're using chicken. All right.
Bye-bye. Take care. See you next
Thank
time.
you. We'll see you
27th.
guys.
Take care.
Yeah.
Bye-bye. Bye.